And the
Brother,
school, go ahead.
Brother Bruce, you are a loaded fellow.
I told you
Now,
I'd go deep.
right, right. And hey, we already got the precursor out there. There's going to be rabbit trails. But now I want you to connect back for anybody who listens to this in any time that they may listen to this about how this all the things that you just explained or the parts of the things that you explained and how they were working in your life, particularly at that thing because you began talking about the different wounds that you got.
Yeah.
Then you gave a wonderful exposition of how this works spiritually, the knowledge and things that you were working in. It became more knowledge later when you can look back and say, "Oh, that's what God was doing."
Yeah. And that broke down my
But
health, by the way. My health deteriorated.
right,
Like
that's right.
now I can't digest food. I had extreme fatigue, manifestation, though the doctors couldn't tell me this. I had to figure it out by myself. Epstein-Barr virus was going on. So what happens is the stress affects the
Yeah,
mitochondria. What mitochondria is the power plant in your cells,
very
produces
important.
energy.
Very
They're
important.
disrupted. Yeah, they break down, which that's the root cause on the physical side that affects digestion. It can affect a lot of things, your brain,
Right.
your nervous system, your heart, everything. But the gut is the second brain of your body, health experts say. You got
Right.
more nerve ending. You actually think with your gut. You
Mm-hmm.
actually process emotions in your gut.
Right.
And so it's the second brain. There's more nerve endings in the small intestine going down your spine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a response to stress a lot of times is digestive issues. So
Right.
one
No,
morning after a fast, I ate some fruit and I couldn't digest it. So things deteriorated. So I had to find my way out of that. The soul wound was the cause of it, was the
no.
point of everything
Now let
else.
me ask you a couple of things about time. First, how much time went by before you begin to have these challenges? At least that they were detectable to you because they were going on before you knew that they were going on. That's the
Two
way
years
this
and
stuff works.
11 months.
About two
Yeah.
years, 11 months,
So it was
and how
almost 3 years.
3 years. Then the time matter of how much time went by before you were getting some kind of actual diagnosis, either by yourself, the Holy Spirit, common
Yeah.
sense, or because
So,
when you mention the scientific part, it still comes back to what people used to say about your stomach, stress,
yeah.
ulcers, not eating in certain kind of environments, or if it's don't sit around eating with people who are mad at you, different things like that. That's
Yeah.
that's old.
Right.
That's old. People known that for years,
Yeah.
but you're breaking it down on how it works in the body. But go ahead.
Yeah, Center for Disease Control many years ago said that 85% of all diseases are related to stress. So the breakdown on the physical side, which I didn't know back then, starts with the mitochondria. Well, that's disrupted. It's actually the electron transport chain. So electrons, your energy is electric in your body. That comes from glucose being converted in this little power plant, the mitochondria, into energy, but there's an exchange in the glucose and create what's called ATP. That's the energy your body uses that goes to the cell or in the cells, and so that those electrons are disrupted. You have and you think about them. I mean, your nervous system is electric, and stress affects the nervous system, so it's affecting these electrons, electric, essentially in the mitochondria of the cell, and that doesn't produce enough energy for the cell. The energy, if there's not enough energy for a cell, you have cellular degeneration, which is everything. I mean, what part of your body's not made up of cells? You know, it all is.
That's
So
trillions.
now that can begin to wear on, say, the intestinal wall, which is only one cell thick. And so the cell wall or the small intestine wall has junctures. The cells have junctures in between. Well, those space out. They get too far apart during this time of stress. Now it allows undigested food to go into your bloodstream and the inside of what goes into your mouth. You basically have a tube going from your mouth until the exit, right?
Right.
So the entrance of the outside world, like food and water and so on, go into the mouth. It's supposed to go through a bath of acid in your stomach that kills
Right.
microbes and so on.
Right.
But under stress and as you age, the stomach acid begins to dry up. It's not as much. So now the microbes are getting through. You got a leaky gut. It's also called intestinal permeability. So these toxins, mycotoxins, mold, undigested food are leaking. They're not getting digested. They're not getting killed in the stomach acid, which is deficient. So it's leaking into the blood, and that makes your immune system go wild because that's foreign invaders. So your immune system is attacking that. Yeah. That creates allergies, autoimmune diseases, psoriasis, etc.
Short rabbit hole. When you mention that, because we can get back to this one.
Yeah, we can always.
When you mentioned the thing about the immune system being overworked because it's attacking all of this extra stuff, of course, that means that there's more inflammation.
Right, chronic inflammation.
And so a lot of times, possibly, some of the listeners will hear that part, the inflammation part. Yeah. And so it's a great explanation where a great deal of it, where it comes from. It's your systems of your body. The inflammation is good for the right stuff in the right amount at the right time.
Short term,
but it's too much.
Healing of a wound, etc. But yeah, chronic inflammation all day long, every day. Your gut can be on fire. Your brain can be on fire. It's called Alzheimer's. That inflammation gets in your arteries. It can create heart attack. I mean, a lot of diseases related to inflammation. I think diabetes is also inflammatory. So yeah, and that inflammation that keeps that immune system chronically overactive, but that's wearing down. It's like using muscle over and over again without rest. It's also wearing the immune system down at the same time. So things get out of whack, and without an immune system, fortunately for me, because I had my faith, I got really exposed to COVID. I was in a meeting in 2021. I went to, well, the partners in the business, they forgot to tell me that one of them has COVID. And my immune system was already compromised. I'm recovering from the grief of my wife's, and you were at the memorial service, but my wife's passing was really traumatic for me. And that's where I began to dig into healing of soul wounds, because I had to heal myself. Same thing on physical healing. I learned to heal my body. God gave me a revelation, Proverbs 3:16, of wisdom in her right hand is long life and length of days, which implies healing and health, and left hand riches and honor. So he said, the Lord told me back at when all this thing happened in the 80s, early 90s, is that I will give you wisdom to heal I'm not going to just zap you and heal you. You have to learn what's going on in your body. So I use wisdom to get there. But wisdom is a key to working these things out. I believe God at the same time, but wisdom's going to give you a roadmap on how God is going to heal you, whether naturally, supernaturally, and that. So if you want to bring me back on point.
Well, it might. If I bring you back, it might not be on the same point. So
that's fine too.
We'll end up somewhere. But the things that were going on in the 80s and in the early 90s, fast forward to the things that have gone over the last few years with the transition and by the way, when you mentioned, man, I don't remember exactly the first time that I met you, but it was pretty close to the way that I met you when you were
early
on
90s.
The stage. You were the same way when I first met. And then the other things I remember is I go into this situation where it's a bunch of people already doing stuff. You were the first person that I remember that actually remembered my name. Now, if you forgot my name, sometime after that for a few years here, a few years there, well, that happens sometimes. But I do recall that and then appreciate it. But then the other thing was the first time I heard your wife open her mouth to sing.
Yeah.
Whoa. She was amazing. Just amazing. But on that period of time, say like the late 80s to early 90s, up until just a few years ago, what was your health like, and what was your understanding of your health during that particular time? Because you had already been involved with praying for people, deliverance, miraculous healings. But I don't know about your own walk in that time. And of course, even if we look at some of the great healers, as they call them, of the history, some of them had their own issues that they still go with. Yeah. They dealt with while they went out and got a lot of other people healed. Yeah. And I'm not declaring that because I want that. I don't want that. But
yeah.
I want everybody healed, including me.
The gifts usually don't work for, from myself to
Right.
myself, like Smith Wigglesworth, very famous, of course, in Pentecostal history,
Right.
but he struggled with kidney
Kidney
stones.
stones. Right.
And he would pass them naturally, which was excruciating.
Yeah. 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 Yeesh.
So, yeah, I never had a stone, but my wife did one time, and pretty sure I don't want one.
Yeah.
So,
That's about a 20-year, that's over a 20-year period from the end of the 90s up to like a few years ago.
so what took place with me is the wisdom from Proverbs 3:16. I began to dig, and I was already a little familiar with natural health, and I've got
Mhm.
water purification system way back before it was popular. And we started trying, to eat healthier. And a lot of stuff was like misinformation about what was healthy too. We had to figure that out.
Yeah.
So my own body, I was really underweight. I mean, right now I'm the same weight as I was in high school.
Mhm.
Most of my life I have been, but I lost quite a bit of weight. I probably lost 30 pounds on a frame that, I mean, you know how big I am. 30
Mhm.
pounds is really bad for me.
Right.
And I couldn't, things were getting better, praying, using my faith, but not a real breakthrough. I couldn't get my weight up, and still like dealing with fatigue. I'd have to take like 2 naps during the afternoon to make it. And so I started studying after, started hearing about Dr. Richard Schultz.
Mhm.
And he was, back then, I don't know now, but back then, a lot of health experts believed he was the number one natural healer in the world. And people weren't really coming to him because they had the flu or an allergy or something. It was usually people giving up to die.
Chronic. Yeah.
And so people with horrible heart disease, cancer, and so on, and not like everybody recovered, but a lot did, seem almost miraculous. Then I began to understand the difference between God's medicine chest and man's medicine chest, man made. And 129 says God gave us every seed bearing herb or every seed bearing tree for our food, but that was our medicine. Our
Right.
medicine was the food, the plants, the spices, and so on. And it's amazing what God had created in plants like cayenne, chili
Right.
peppers, we might
Right.
use, and with various kinds, habanero, African bird pepper I used for a long time. And I get really, really hot stuff. That's what works. I know
The really, really hot stuff works for what?
well, in terms of circulation, it's the
Uh,
best for that.
yeah.
And I put it in a lot of other formulas because if the circulation's not getting these other herbs, if I got something for thyroid, well, the circulation has to get it there. If I mix it with like a heart formula, I mix it with the heart formula that I
Mhm.
make. And that way the herbs are going to get where they're supposed to be. Circulation is going to carry them there. But any problem that's a problem with circulation, cayenne's the first thing I'm going to think of. I mean, if I only had 3 herbs in my house, cayenne would be one.
Mhm.
Garlic would be another, because
Yeah.
garlic fight off infections, was
Yeah.
known as Russian penicillin during like World War II. They
Right.
didn't have antibiotics. They gave them garlic. And really, garlic works better because there's no mutation of the virus, whatever, to come back and get greater. And it leaves the good bacteria away alone, kills
Right.
the bad bacteria or viruses. Then
That's a big deal right there.
it is. And if it doesn't kill the virus, it will kill your friends. So they'll at least enough to keep distance from you.
Right.
So, but the raw garlic is what I would take if there's an infection. And then the other one would be cayenne or lobelia. Lobelia is not one you would know, but that
Lobelia.
works on respiratory. So if there's
Huh.
emphysema, COPD, it'll dilate the bronchial tubes. If somebody drowned even, I mean, if you take enough of it's called an emetic, it will cause you to vomit. So if you got something poisonous or harmful in your stomach, you could take enough of it, it'll force vomit up. And people who have drowned have been given lobelia, and it causes the diaphragm to push the water out of their lungs, and it comes out their mouth. So
Okay, we got to
that's the
stop
other.
right here. We got to stop right here on that one. Lobelia. Now, pepper.
Cayenne will heal a heart attack or a stroke in 30 seconds.
Cayenne.
Cayenne.
Now, I was surprised about this, and this is a challenge when you talk about health, or you get to used to talking about what you're dealing with, other people dealing with. You
Yeah.
end up in environments, in rooms, talking about similar things. And then you forget, oh, everybody's not talking about this. And I think everybody, I know people who are familiar with all kind of spices, who,
Yeah.
and I mean, even from a cooking standpoint, who really don't even know what cayenne pepper is. So it's Cayenne. Cayenne pepper is very available, although Bruce may give you some insights on which
Good
ones
stuff
are
is
actually good, because they're not all
good
these.
stuff is hard to find
Yeah.
because I lost a source for my cayenne. It's been hard to replace. Tried finding it on Amazon. You won't find the good. You'll find like something that says 30,000 heat units. Probably not even that. You want cayenne that's at least 150,000. You could probably just get. I mean, they got monster hot sauces around now today. So if you could end up just finding a hot sauce, you just want to make sure they have the heat units on there, and you want at least 150,000. I've had as much as I think 500,000 before, and I diluted that with my 150,000 and brought it back down. But so you want the really hot stuff that's not typically, it's not going to be in the capsules on the health food store shelf. You got to look a little harder. If you can look for habanero, Haberro, I think. Habanero, which is, anybody who's Mexican knows habanero.
Keep it hot. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we got some here.
Habaneros are usually up in that heat category. A jalapeno, not as much. That might be 70, 80,000. So you can. I was going to write a book on this. I've actually pretty much wrote it and never published it, on how to stop a heart attack in 30 seconds. Heart attack or a stroke works the same thing because it pushes the blood. There's my teacher, Dr. Richard Scholl. He had a guy come for his appointment one time. He parked in the parking lot, but he never came in. And so Dr. Scholl's saying, we're behind time, went out, talked to his secretary. Where's Mr. So-and-so? Well, I see his car, but he never came in. He walked out. The guy was slate gray. He had died in the parking lot. Dr. Scholl's immediately went inside, grabbed his very hot cayenne tincture, came out and put some dropperfuls in the guy's mouth, and the guy woke up. Color returned.
I'm getting all kind of revelation about different things that I've seen happen over the years. But what I'm gonna do now.
Well, let me tell you this about cayenne. Just a real quick one about cayenne.
Well, we're not going to get off that. We're not going to get off that.
Let me share you God's genius in that, though. So it'll help with a stroke too, right? It'll help stop bleeding. I mean, if you got a wound there, well, clean it first, but you can take the cayenne powder, pack it down in there, it'll stop the bleeding. If somebody's hemorrhaging internally, take enough cayenne, it will stop that bleeding on the inside.
Now, if they were doing that, how would they take it internally?
Well, you can do a tincture. And
what's a tincture?
A tincture is a liquid form of that. Generally, they're gonna use, alcohol to be able to make that tincture to pull the properties out. And you don't have to be concerned about the amount of alcohol. You're going to use like 2 droppers at a time. You can barely see that in the bottom of your cup. And so it's very minuscule. I mean, it's not as much alcohol that's in a ripe banana even. So it's very, very minuscule. But that pulls those phytochemicals and properties out of the herb when you make a tincture. And so that would be like in a dark glass bottle, you would find a tincture. But you can use, the way I would typically sip it throughout the day, and did that for years and years, which I'll take, maybe a half teaspoon of that cayenne. And I tried taking capsules. That's like dropping a nuclear bomb down your GI tract. When that capsule dissolves, it's all at one time. And it's, by the way, if you ever take too much and the heat's too strong, it's the chili peppers or cayenne are a cousin to tomato. Tomato helps cut the heat for some reason. And there's times I like kind of overdosed, because sometimes I take it before a meal, like a half a teaspoon. Got busy and forgot to eat yet.
Forgot to eat.
Now it's exploding. If I get food on top, it's okay. But if that exploded, just eating food alone is not going to help. Now I would go grab a jar of pasta sauce and I start eating the pasta sauce, and it kills the heat. Now,
Right.
there's sometimes I've gone through a whole brand new bottle of pasta sauce and got to
That's
the
a
bottom.
lot.
So I was way too much on fire. And but you know what I ended up learning to do is put like the cayenne in a full glass of water over here. I just take sips kind of, you know, over the next hour or two. And I would have a chaser, just only water here. So after I take that, then I would drink this too. I have an herbal stuff that has cayenne in it. You
Right.
snuff it, it lights up your sinuses. But there are people that were supposed to have scheduled surgery on their sinuses. They didn't have to have the surgery because this herbal stuff has also got some things to fight infection and so on. It cleaned out their sinuses and it erased. I've helped people with back when we were in the church together in Grand Rapids. I had a lady with strep throat for 3 weeks. The doctor changed her prescription 3 times. And she was at my house for the home Bible study. I said, come in the kitchen with me. I had already made, well, I had to have immune boost there with garlic and cayenne in it and some other things. I made a fresh horseradish root, which is hard for me to find anymore. But I'd have, and out of a jar doesn't work. It's weak as well water. So I grate up fresh horseradish and mix that with apple cider vinegar, make it kind of a slushy thing. Because if you're having postnasal drip or like some type of infection in the throat, whatever, or sinus, this stuff is very, very powerful. And especially the first day it's made. So I've just made some up. I gave her some. She kind of danced around my kitchen for a little bit.
I guess.
It's different type of burn. It's a burn, but it's different than a cayenne burn, which is burning going down. This burn's going up, you know. Up
This was not a Holy Ghost dance she was doing?
Yeah, it kind of looked like it.
But
It was energetic. And I gave her the immune boost and sent her home. Well, in 3 days, it was gone.
right.
3 weeks with the doctor and antibiotics, it didn't work. So the cayenne, the genius about it is it'll stop bleeding, right? Well, if somebody has a bleeding nose because they injured it, you can give them cayenne or even put some cayenne, you know, kind of pack it into the nose. It'll stop the bleeding. If they're bleeding because they have a stroke, the cayenne will not stop the bleeding.
Okay.
It's a thinking herb. How does it know that you had a stroke?
It goes where it's supposed to go.
Well, what happens is that if a person had a stroke, their blood need, and you probably know this, you know, from being a fireman, but it's like a release valve.
Right.
It's relieving pressure from their swollen brain.
Correct.
So cayenne won't stop that bleeding because it could kill them.
Right.
But the cayenne can stop the stroke.
But you asked the question, how does it know?
There's only one way for it to know. When God created it,
that's its purpose.
He stamped its purpose and its assignment.
Right. No
and
further.
A drug can't do that.
A drug, no. You're right.
Plus, if I take the seed of that cayenne, put it in the ground, it's going to grow something. There's life there. There's life in that seed.
Right.
If I take a pharmaceutical pill, plant it in the ground, there's no life there.
There's no life there. Now, you mentioned the hot stuff. And wait, let me do several things right now.
Let me tell you one quick genius thing again.
Okay, go ahead.
Poison ivy.
Okay.
If you're out in the woods and you come in contact with poison ivy,
right.
You know, God put the antidote within 15 feet of that poison ivy.
It's also a plant, right?
It's also a plant. It's called jewelweed.
Right.
Every place, unless man was there and cleared it out, if you come in contact with poison ivy, God put the antidote within 15 feet. The genius creation. Yeah. Purpose and assignment.
Right. Now, along that path, I'll get along that path. Let me say this part first, because we're going to end up going further, obviously. We've only begun. The rabbit holes have only begun. So this is not, for whatever purposes and reasons these things are said, I'm going to say them for the same reasons. This is technically not giving medical advice. Exactly. We're not pretending to give medical advice. However,
education.
We are being educational, and we are telling the truth about testimonies. Testimony is a testimony, no matter who you give credit to. And Absolutely. So that's where we're going with this. Keep your heart and your mind open for any way that this, even if things don't necessarily come out as a specific thing to your cognitive understanding. Let it resonate.
Yeah.
You will hear something. See, now I'm talking. Now I'm preaching.
Yeah.
You know that ain't medical.
Absolutely.
You will hear something from the one who speaks. All right. Now, when you mentioned, I was going to go down the list of everybody should have in their cabinet some cayenne pepper. Everybody should have in their
first aid kit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not medical advice. That's
right.
Yeah. But you should have
and then medical. Call 911.
Right. Now you can call your medicine cabinet your cupboard if you want to.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. And garlic. Well, I don't like I don't like the way it makes my breath smell. Your breath smell anyway. So
get some essential peppermint oil.
Peppermint oil.
Better than a mint, because this is the real oil, and just put a little bit in water or put a drop in your mouth. It'll take care of the smell.
Right. And there's other green stuff you can eat and chew on that's that'll help with different things like that too. But if it's a choice between bad breath or something worse, okay, you can have bad breath for a couple of minutes. You don't have to worry about that.
Another one, yeah.
But also, you said lobelia.
Lobelia, yeah.
That has to be spelled. And
Lobellia. And I'm not even sure you can get that on Amazon. Maybe.
Well, I'm going to say because
I can give there are. You can still find it on the internet, though. There are companies like Frontier that will have all kinds of verbs.
Well, the possibility of having access to cayenne and then going further on finding out what's the quality part or the part about finding garlic and then going a little bit further to find out best quality differences, that's right there. But this would be probably more unfamiliar. So why don't you give us a little bit about that?
Well, lobelia essentially is a weed out in nature, but it's a powerful herb. And a lobelia essentially has to do with respiratory is one of the best things. Or again, that's, I explained that if you ate something that was harmful, poisonous, whatever, you could use that in strong enough dose to make you vomit. And so it'll clean out the stomach really well. But it also, in smaller doses, it's going to dilate the bronchial tubes. So people have done well to recover of respiratory diseases like emphysema. What's the other one? Children typically have asthma. Asthma could help with that. It'll help clear out the mucus out of.
Right. I want to tie that together with what we're talking about part of what we're talking about a little bit ago concerning the causes of inflammation. Inflammation, of course, the things you're naming right there. Inflammation plays a part in that. So it's a lot of people. And we think of the word holistic. I want to go down that any type of outside understanding of that. But if you think about whole, a lot of times when we're talking about certain types of ways of dealing with situations that we're used to in our own medical community, they're talking about the possibility, not the definite, but the possibility of something being in there that helps one thing while it tears to bits everything else.
Right.
However, when you're talking about things that are natural and have a purpose, many of the times they're helping something while not harming other things. And there's usually some added value to things that aren't even the specific target.
Right.
When you take it. Now, in the same manner, we have, if we just say inflammation or we just say asthma, we can forget about all the different areas and different ways that someone ends up with something that can be classified as asthma. Because there's a bunch of different ways that a person ends up with this thing called asthma. Yet you have something that actually is a help no matter what. Because no matter what. And so these things are really important. And also for the purpose of not saying, no, this is it. That's it. This is it in this situation. But there tends to be, with the natural helps, there always tends to be more. It has a target, but it usually does more help. Now, I want to tie this to another part because somewhere along here we're supposed to be talking about men's health specifically, but I don't think we need to pivot to that. Okay. I think we can maybe parallel some of the things concerning men's health specifically. One of them is we know that sometimes it's called the number one killer is heart disease. And the way that it affects men and women, there are some differences. I don't want to gab too much about this. But over the years, some of what I've learned concerning men and women's differences in health have mostly come through women. Now, there's male doctors who are very good, or male caretakers, or even who've written about some great things. But a lot of the serious differentiating revelations that I've got for myself, and quite frankly, for a lot of men in my family, have come because there was a lot of information on women things. I would think like Dr. Mindy Pelz. She wrote the book How to Fast Like a Woman, or How to Fast Like a Girl. And Barbara O'Neill. Much of what I found out that's very beneficial to men came while they were talking about the difference.
Yeah.
But that's an off thing. So I'm going to get off that rabbit trail and get back to the heart thing.
Yeah.
When you mentioned these having an effect on the heart, what I was seeing 30 and 40 years ago in real time concerning hormones, men and women, boys and girls, because I was going to hundreds or thousands of medical situations. I worked in a hospital 5 years. Then there's the medical part of, then there's a ministry part of going to see people. Then there was every day working in a fire department, just a lot of medicals.
Right.
There was a point in the late 80s to the mid 90s where I was watching teenage girls and young women begin to go through what people used to call time of life changes. Women used to go into after their 40s.
Right.
And it was obvious.
Generally around 48.
Yeah, but these were teens going through it. And it was obvious. There was something else.
Puberty really early.
Really early. But I was also seeing different hormonal activity was happening concerning younger men, but I did not know what that was. I knew I was observing it. I had some opinions about what it might be coming from. And it's just only the last few years that I'm getting clarity about what I was looking at. The sources of those problems for young men and young women were the same, I believe. Mostly our food. That's what it's mostly connected to.
Yep.
The hormonal activity were causing young women to have a lot of problems with giving birth, a lot of problems with thyroid, a lot of problems with a lot of things that mostly women went through, if they went through it, at a much older age. Yeah. But it was all the time. What I was seeing with young guys, a lot of them were having heart attacks. And there was no correct connection to like having taken cocaine or anything like that. Now I'm realizing that the heart diseases that are affecting so many men in their 50s and 60s, it was affecting a lot of men in their 20s and 30s. These type of heart problems, circulation problems, and hormonal problems were at work a long time, and we've been watching them. So now that's a little bit of actually me telling instead of asking a question. But any direction you want to go to concerning that or men's health in general, if you've seen a difference or if there's a difference you want to things to look out for or be concerned about. Because the other thing that I found out concerning the heart issue, of course, a lot of people, they don't know. For a lot of people, what do you say? Well, what was your first symptom that you had a heart problem, a heart attack? There's got to be something, that's pretty.
Well, they say the number one symptom of a heart attack is death.
Is death. It's actually death.
Yeah, there's no choice now.
Right. So people who are around, they've made it to their 40s, 50s, or 60s. Something was going on a long time before that.
Yeah.
And what I was seeing in real time is it's not talked about much, but there's a lot of 30-year-old guys who have heart attacks and they die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always want to know where the root cause is. So like we're talking about respiratory, sharing how you can use lobelia, but you still need to know the cause, the root, and deal with that. Don't just trim at the outer branches, The problem goes down to the root.
Right.
And so stress is the first one, because again, CDC, 85% of all disease related to stress, that affects the mitochondria, that affects the heart. And mitochondria being off can create the chronic inflammation. So you get inflammation in those arteries. Then the artery wall, because of the inflammation, is turned on all the time. It gets little tears in it.
Right.
And you would bleed to death if your body didn't have a mechanism to patch up those tears. what it does, it uses cholesterol to patch up the tear. And cholesterol is not the problem. It's not the cause of the heart disease any more than now. Back in the day, if living in Grand Rapids, if I noticed anytime I would fire alarm and I see these red trucks with Chris Burns in it driving down the road, and if I got in my car and followed them down, I would come to a place and I see a house on fire. And if I kept saying that, I could conclude, if I use scientific studies the way they're sometimes used, I can conclude that I've observed that every time I hear an alarm and I see this red truck and these guys jump out of the truck,
right,
well, there's a house on fire. So they're going around the city starting fires every place, because I see them at the scene of the crime. I see these fire trucks there. So they must be causing fires. That's what we're doing with cholesterol.
Right.
Cholesterol saved your life.
Yeah, get rid of the cholesterol.
And you're blaming cholesterol, yet and then you think, well, back in the 70s, they told us, don't eat butter. That's bad for your heart because it's fat. Eat margarine, which is a trans fat. Well, everybody now knows trans fat is like plastic in your arteries. The medical community and the big food industry had us eating garbage that man made rather than foods that God made.
Right.
So because of their fear of cholesterol. But if you didn't eat any fat at all, your liver is still going to make cholesterol. And as a man too, you won't have any testosterone without cholesterol. Right. So cholesterol is not the problem. Cholesterol is at the scene of the crime, but it's there to keep you alive. It's better to have a blocked artery for a while, where if you got smart, you would find the reason why this is going on and heal it, because the heart's one of the easiest things to heal. And rather than blame, as medical community did for a long time, blame the cholesterol. But the cholesterol is only there because the inflammation caused the tears, and you would have bled out, hemorrhage, if it didn't do its job. So what we need to do is not really focus on the cholesterol, but focus on the cause of inflammation. What are you eating, or what are you eating, not physically, but what are you eating with your emotions that's eating you that may be causing this problem? And, and start getting to the root. So big pharma and big agriculture, they're joined at the hip. The big pharmaceutical company in Kalamazoo, they had farms just outside of the city. And back in the day, I wondered, why did they have farms? Because they make drugs. Well, they make drugs for agriculture, the fertilizer and so on. Then they bought Monsanto, which is like the most, many people consider the most, Roundup is made by them. Glyphosate is killing off the bees. You kill off the bees, you're killing agriculture too. So there's repercussions for man's stepping over here, and like Adam and Eve, they're judging for themselves what's good and evil. Right. And they're creating a lot of evil, even if they think it was good. But, we can go a lot deeper in that, but the heart's easy to heal though. But you have to quit eating sad if you want a healthy heart. SAD is standard American
diet, which is
the processed foods.
It's a good name for it though, too.
Yeah.
It is sad.
It makes you sad eventually. Yeah. And